What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by rap group Terror Squad. Basically, this product is called True Story, and it came out in the summer of 2004. So the thing about this particular product here is just Fat Joe had an anchored single with this particular product in the form of the Megaton Smash, Lean Back, as far as this pitch kind of happened with it. But the surprising thing about this particular product is it did actually have some other singles about it. They're not as commonly known. I don't know if like the second single, which in certain effects did chart a little bit on the Billboard 100, or the third single rather, which was "Take Me Home," that kind of got like limited runs as far as this pitch can happen, was at least a top 65 or top 70 single. But that might have actually been on MTV2 back in some of those type days as far as those appeals kind of happen. It's just kind of the concept. There was a music video for it. So after like the steam wore off of Lean Back in about like the late summer 2004, I suspect that was what was kind of happening there. Was just within the pitch that it's not as commonplace as talked about, and that's kind of the pitch behind it. A lot of those MTV2 singles and VH1 type ones that were just on differential formats, just not as commonly talked about. It was a pitch behind it. I'm glad that they at least promoted this project a little bit further, because in a lot of ways it used to make Fat Joe almost like a mild sense like a one hit wonder, just because the mammoth and megaton overall appeal leaned back, just the surprise hit potential that particular had. But the surprising thing about it to know is just the fact that actually Lean Back is not Fat Joe's song. It's actually Terror Squads, which was his group that he started like in the mid late or the relative late 90s. It was back when Big Pun was still alive back in 1999 that they dropped their debut album. But unfortunately, just 4, 5, 6 months after like that album came out, Big Pun passed on and was not able to get anywhere close to really recording for this particular album. It was just within the pitch. Fat Joe obviously upgraded quite a bit throughout the 2000s. He usually would get about one or two singles off of each of his 2000s albums. It's kind of within the pitch. So it was a good look, but basically Fat Joe was kind of in like revving his wheels type era between like 2003 to about the summer 2005, and this was like the hit that revitalized him in a lot of good senses, because he did have hits in the early 2000s, like the song he did "What's Love" with Ja Rule and Ashanti and some of those type of ones, and the song he did with Genuine off of his 2002 album. I forget what that. I think it's "Crush Tonight." Some of those type of ones, but this was really the Lean Back was the particular song that made Fat Joe kind of a household name. Lean Back was kind of the song that made Fat Joe like a household name, kind of in like the typical type format, especially throughout the mid 2000s, as far as those first going to happen. And he quickly put out an album, All or Nothing, in 2005, pretty relatively fast after that particular album happened. There was just a number of things that bolstered that 2005 album pitch, just like a beef with 50 Cent and just his beef with 50 Cent, and then affiliating with folks that were also beefing with 50 Cent and getting some good NY anthems like Ja Rule and some of those type of folks. So it was a good look for Fat Joe around 2004, 2005. But this is a surprising album here, actually better than expected within it. I would have to say, if you're thinking, oh, this is just a one hit wonder album, the only hit off of it is just Lean Back, that may be true that that's the best song on this particular product, but there is a lot of mixtape soul in here that I was not expecting, that is very similar to like DJ Drama mixtapes from like the mid 2000s, ones like Can't Ban the Snowman by Jeezy and like Trap or Die by Jeezy, some of those type airs, and the Lil Wayne dedication mixtape, some of those type of pitches. Just a lot of Southern hip hop artists that kind of sampled and took some similar pages out of like Jay-Z's The Blueprint type format. This particular album does that as well, and it nails it with a lot of blistering type of feel. So this is not a classic album here, but it is a relatively better than expected. It's not going to get like a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. It's actually better than that within the aspect. Now, there were 3 productions on this 12-song album. There were 3 songs on this particular album that I was kind of on the fence about, and if I had recommended those songs more full-blown, this album might have gotten pretty damn close to like a 10 out of 10. It might have gotten like a 9.5 or 9.75, just considering the fact that actually out of the 12 songs on here, there's at least 10 that I recommend, and there's at least 10 on here that I recommend in some relative type fashion. But like I was saying, 7 of them I at least full blown recommend out of the 12, and then there's an additional 3 that I recommend, kind of ones that are on the fence about and kind of almost songs. So it's just from the pitch as far as saying that this is a lot better an album than what the prospect of it kind of seems, especially considering that it didn't have much chart appeal. I think I want to say this album went gold or something like that, but just within the pitch, this is not as commonly talked about, or really, this is a very seldom type product that mostly the bread at the what particularly is talk about with this product is just Lean Back, and then that virtually wraps it up. There is some other stuff here, we'll get to it. So the thing about it is there were 3 singles. Wikipedia kind of only lists 2 of them, but there was actually 3 just in the past. The first single, the lead single, the promo single is basically "Yeah Yeah Yeah," which charted on the Billboard 100 or the R&B hip hop charts. But didn't catch up. That particular song didn't catch enough noise just within the fair behind it, so it moved on to Lean Back, which of course was the anchor of this product. And there was a follow-up single after that that wrapped up production. But Yeah 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 is basically like a throwback kind of 90s NY city hop hitter to kind of get here, just weaving amongst like the standard gritty day. I'd have to say about this particular song. This is a good song for some snacks. good type concept of just like city hop type fare, good concept of just like some NY city hop type fare, just from the pitch behind it, just getting Subway, some of those type pitches, visiting like a hot dog stand, some of those particular type fares, just clothing runs, pitches like that, just kind of on foot type runs just within the fare behind it, just standard kind of sunny, relative, maybe not so much full bound kind of sunny, but just the concept of just being amidst like a big city and just the product, just kind of the weaving that goes along with it. But this is one of the three almost songs. So to talk about the three almost songs real quick, the three almost songs would be Yeah, 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 Let Them Things Go, and then Pass Away, which all of these are relatively solid enough songs, but I just question the full boundedness as to how often I would listen to them. I like Yeah, 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 but it's kind of a minimalist type production that just feels like something, if you know of like productions that were kind of on like Ghostface Kill's Fish Scale from 2006. It just kind of has like that minimalist kind of boom bap, just relative to like 1993, 1995 New York, just from the pitch behind it. Reminds of like a song like Touch It by Busta Rhymes, just not quite as much thump on that one. It has the relative type fare, just like a standard kind of almost like Swizz Beatz type production. Not to say Swizz Beatz in like a bad way because he has a lot of good boilers, but just the concept of something that just is a very scale it's a very skeletal type hopper just in the pitch. It is something that just gets the buzz going, but it just doesn't have much oomph in terms of like the sonically pleasing typeness apart from just the boom bap type thump about it, which is I like this song, but I just question the oftenness of how often I would play this within the concept of just how skeletal it kind of is. But it is a relatively good song, but not enough to warrant like a full blown kind of recommendation. So that's a lot. That's one of the few problems with this. That's I think that's kind of the problem what like folks kind of had with this album back in the day is folks were thinking, okay, Lean Back's an excellent song, do another song or two like that. And it's kind of within the pitch that they do have club songs on here, but obviously Lean Back just flattens every other club song that comes close. The club songs on here would be songs like, the next single after this, Take Me Home, is not a follow up to Lean Back, it's not a club type song, but songs like Let Them Things Go, Yeah, 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 and like I would say Humdrum are some ones that have like some relative thump and bounce about them just within the pitch behind it. But none of these, I mean, the Scotch Shorts beat was definitely like the most fiery one on here. I definitely think they needed another one at least as good as that, but they at least have some buzz type ones, but they're just kind of more promo type songs. But yeah, the Lean Back is the second single. Now this is the one that's the anchor of the product. This is probably the reason I think for the most part most folks would kind of say is the reason why this was purchased. Just the pitches like that. Once again, this hit number one was a huge song in like the mid 2000s. Folks were doing the Lean Back dance, some of that type fare, big type appeal. This overall music video is pretty good. Some of those type fares did a pretty good job of putting on Rami Ma as well as far as those particular fares going to happen. And also pretty much damn well made Fat Joe kind of a household name at least around that particular time. He had other hits, but this is one that really ironed him out. So Lean Back's like a classic 2000s kind of NY anthem. I'd have to say just a consistent number. The song is just a consistent number one smash. Gets the grooves red hot. I would definitely feel like about this one. It's just a dance slammer to kind of get here. So it's good, excellent type pitch for some of these type fares. It's a good product of that. This is a song that a lot more folks need to rap to. I've said in the past, I think when I've talked with Jackal Goldkick in past times as far as this pitch is going to happen, I remember saying that I think a real rapper that probably would have completely shredded this beat to pieces would have been Big Pun had he made it way out to 2004 to have done this. I mean, just think of the concept of like Fat Joe and Rami Ma in this song. It's obvious that Big Pun on this particular song would have been a real annihilated type format. So it's just within the concepts, unfortunate, but that's just within the tone behind it. So that's the pitch. But yeah, real excellent type one, easy kind of club hit. It's a real stock one, best song on the album. Just would have to say, but that's not to say that there aren't other good songs on here. Take Me Home is the third single, and this is one I didn't know about as much back in the day. I once again think that this is I think this is more MTV2 or MTV3 bound as far as those fairs are kind of having with it. But this is like a drowsy kind of mixtape, soul drifting, kind of get within these pitches, just like a DJ drama tape. I'd have to say, definite song to smoke an L, and just kind of some danger to kind of have within those aspects. So it just reminds me of something Lil Wayne would do when he was high as hell. One of those type ones, like basically the song off of like I forget what it's called, the song off of Like Father Like Son, basically like some drooping kind of Lil Wayne smoking songs like Leather So Soft and Kush, some of those type ones. But the thing about this particular product is there's a lot of similarities like the stuff that Lil Wayne was kind of doing in like the mid 2000s pitches like Dedication, the Carter 2, some of those type projects, Like Father Like Son, some of those type fairs where Lil Wayne would do like these runners and DJ Khaled type beats when he was more living in Miami, some of those type fairs, just 2004, 2005, 2006 Lil Wayne is the product of some of that type fair. And it's just some good type pitches, kind of get some of that soulfulness because I like the concept of I like the concept of Fat Joe kind of being a cousin of that particular Lil Wayne type style, but it's just an interesting type pitch that this is like an offshoot of Jay-Z's The Blueprint. It nails it mostly well. That's why this album's going to get like a relatively higher score. It's just because that's why this album's going to get like a relatively higher score. It's just within the pitch that it has some effectualness that just was surprising just within the concept where it seems like the manual kind of atmosphere about it just is the concept of this is a one hit wonder type album, but it does have more to offer. It just is kind of it just requires a little bit digger deep. It requires a little bit more deeper digging as far as those fairs can happen. But it definitely, I would probably say the second best song on this particular album in terms of immediacy would probably be "Take Me Home." This has Dre from Cool and Dre on there. Has a cat named Armageddon, who I think was like the cat they were trying to introduce after Remy Ma, and it has Remy Ma on the song as well. It has Fat Joe on there, which is definitely a good thing. And then it has Remy Ma to introduce her a little bit further. Good type pitch, and then just some good fairs for that. This is within the pitch. So yeah, just to talk about this particular album here, the only two songs I don't recommend in any fashion on this album would just be Streets of NY and then basically Bring 'Em Back. The only two songs I don't recommend on this project would just be Streets of NY and then Bring 'Em Back, which to talk about those, basically the context behind Streets of NY, the format of Streets of NY was just not as hitting as far as those aspects kind of happen with it. It was just kind of a more picnic type music type song. That just the ambience behind that one was just not as good as like the particular product of it. Just felt like a little bit more of a sunny type one compared to the aspect of what was probably. I feel like it probably should have had a little bit more format, like yeah, 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 with just a little bit more bass or like something a little bit more with like a synthy type production on there. Probably would have worked a little bit. I mean, I realized the Streets of NY was needing something, but this felt like a little bit more of like the parks of NY more so than the streets of NY. Just kind of within the pitch, and then Bring 'Em Back. I just didn't really like this minimalist type beat. This is the only song that Big Pun is on, just within the concept. Now, obviously, he passed years before this album came out, but just within the pitch, has two deceased rappers on here, one of which is Big L, the other of which is Big Pun. Both these folks diss. This particular song just felt like the grit of just like a typical kind of NY mixtape, just without much real carnivorous type fare. It's just kind of one that this probably has one of the worst productions on here as far as those fares going to happen. I know that these almost songs are a little bit more minimalist just in a sense, but this is just the product of one that just did not have too much engagement factor about it. This real aspect of this kind of typical factory kind of this mixtape type, this factory kind of boom bap type fare that just didn't have as much jump off the page in terms of something more kind of like compelling within the sense behind it. But it's just kind of it's kind of disappointing just within the pitch because I would have liked a better Big Pun song, and same thing with Big L, considering that they're pretty sharp lyricists, but just when the pitch didn't deliver. So, but yeah, once again to say the three almost songs just within the pitch would be Yeah, 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 Let Them Things Go, and Pass Away. So I'll talk about those. I already talked about Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. But Pass Away is a real nice one on here within a relative type sense. It's like a murky kind of evening gazing to kind of get here. Definitely some evening gazing kind of slog. Definitely some murky kind of evening gazing slog to kind of get within those fashions. Just after work shift kind of traffic, I would feel like here, and just a typical kind of Tuesday like ruminate to kind of have within those pitches. So it's just the concept as far as those fairs going to happen. Pass Away just has a little bit more grime factor about it. It just feels like something Mob Deep or Nas would kind of do, just in a more sense of like a Sunset Gaze type tune, just within the pitch behind it. It's real nice, deep type aspect to kind of get for some of those tones. This real nice, deep aspect to kind of get for some of those type tones. It's unfortunate that Fat Joe isn't on this song or someone within that relative pitch, but I think that, basically Armageddon does a pretty good job on this particular type fare, but it's just kind of within the pitch as far as saying that has the song has character, has some extra good song, has some extra good kind of songwriting as far as those fashions can kind of happen with it, but it's just the context as far as saying that. I mean, I like this particular song, but it just makes me question like the concept. I feel like Pass Away has some good songwriting here as far as those fairs going to happen. And this is a mostly good song to listen to, but I just question the oftenness of how the particularness of when I would listen to it just within the fairs. It's good enough within a relative type pitch, but still is one I was just kind of more on the fence about, more so than full blown kind of convinced. Like songs like Lean Back, obviously, and Take Me Home, and some of those type ones, and probably songs like Humdrum and some of those type pitches, and other ones that are more soulful like Thunder in the Air. But basically, like to talk about Let Them Things Go, it's another club type hitter, just like Yeah, 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 and Lean Back. But this is just kind of, I mean, this has a little bit better production than Yeah, 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 but it's still one that's this is still relatively minimalist, has enough basic thump on here to get like some of the product done, but this is not enough convincing within the full blown to be like a full blown kind of home run or victory, something like that. It's just a basic kind of night venue hop to kind of get within these tones, just a minimalist kind of dance jumper. Basically, a song to play in like the same night as Lean Back, but it's just within the fashion. I feel like this is more white noise type music, more for it. I feel like Let Them Things Go is more white noise type music, more so than a full blown kind of attention grabber as far as those aspects would kind of happen there. It's kind of within the pitch. I mean, it has the same sort of basic thump, it has a little bit of that minimalist kind of boom bap type fare like Lean Back, but just in a little bit less of like kind of the oomph of like something sonically I'd have to say about it. Just basically a skeletal type one, just like yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I was saying, it's just the concept. I mean, these are some basic kind of NY type one. These are some basic kind of Stark type ones to kind of get, and they do at least some relative damage of having like some dance noise, but they just don't have enough real pizzazz about them to really carry like a full blown kind of thing. It's just I recommend these songs within a relative sense, but I just question it. These are at least ones that have some songs like yeah, 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 and Let Them Things Go. At least have some common degree of quality about them within the sense, but I just feel like the concept behind it, they just are not like like I've been saying, the pizzazz is just a little bit less. I feel like yeah, 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 and Let Them Things Go just kind of fuel the complaint that maybe this album doesn't have as much full bound kind of pizzazz compared to like Lean Back. It's not that these are bad songs just within the pitch, that they're just not as glaring as far as the particular immediacy about them, but they do have enough relative buzz as the pitch. But yeah, talk about some of these songs on here. So there's definitely some ones like Take Me Home. I'd have to say like some real nice ones on here just within those aspects. We kind of be say one for example would be Nothing's Gonna Stop Me. I'd say this is like a typical kind of hit city commerce. Nothing's Gonna Stop Me is like a typical kind of hit city commerce steer to kind of get here. Just a soulful dredge and kind of a wrap errands up. It's like some soulful dredge kind of get within those aspects. A good song to wrap errands up as far as those pitches kind of having like a good song, some particular soulful dredge kind of get within those aspects. Good song to wrap some errands up as far as those pitches kind of having a good song for some traffic as far as that particular pair kind of goes. There's actually a lot of traffic songs kind of get with. There's actually a lot of traffic songs kind of get within some of these type aspects that has a number of these on here. Take Me Home, basically songs like Thunder in the Air, Terror Era, some of these type ones. I'd say Nothing's Gonna Stop Me. Some of these type pitches pass away. Some of those particular type fares just from the aspects. So it does have some good relative kind of NY type commerce within a pitch. Just pitches like that, I'd have to say. Thunder in the Air is a quality one just within those aspects. This is one that I do recommend within that sense, not as much when I'm on the fence. Thunder in the Air is a quality one just within those aspects. I'd have to say it's like a dramatic kind of city night commerce kind of get within those particular tones about it. This reminds me of like a Dipset song within some of those type pitches, something that Jim Jones, Cameron, Joel Santana would kind of do in a more kind of fleeting type sense. This is like grimy and like the night. The song is pretty grimy, I'd have to say, and this is a good song for amidst like the night makeshift as far as those pitch kind of happens. So it's just one to kind of have for like a more busybody type fare, just in the aspect, just more night commerce, just in the pitch behind it. Just a product of something like Pass Away, just not as much settled down, just in the pitch behind a little bit more, just kind of amongst the aspect of just kind of weaving through city lights, pitches like that, some of that type fare, just getting some errands done within that relative type fashion. Good busybody type one. This is probably one of the more immediate type ones, and the unfortunate thing about this particular song is just the fact that Fat Joe's not on this particular song, but still works pretty well. This prospect dude does a pretty good job with that. I'd say that yes dem to def is a nice one just within those relative type pitches. This is it's a yes dem to def is a nice one within those pitches. It's like a mini kind of city hop gallivants to kind of get here, just a low key version of like Jay-Z's Heart of the City from the Blueprint. It's like some good comedy to kind of get within those aspects. It's another nice one here. A little bit more amidst like the daytime. Yeah, just some good day hop type product to kind of get within those tones. Just sunny day just within those pitches. This is a better version of how the Streets of NY kind of turned out. The Streets of NY song that I didn't recommend here. The Streets of NY song that I didn't recommend on here. Yes, Dem to Def is just a better variation of that. And plus, it has Fat Joe on there, which is pretty excellent type prospects. It's a good type pitch kind of get for some of that type of relative type. It's a good type pitch kind of get for some of that particular tone of just fierceness, just what I have to say within it. So it's just some good commerce kind of have just city hop type fare, just get some errands done, buy some clothes, buy a belt, shoes, some of those type aspects just within the tone behind it. I'd say Humdrum. I think I talked about this one. I'm not sure, but I think this is one. This is a club type song that actually works a little bit better compared to some of these almost songs I was talking about. Humdrum is like a buzzing kind of evening product to kind of get here. Just a good club popper, I'd have to say. It goes pretty well with Lean Back within a relative type sense. I would probably recommend if you just need like the club hitters as far as like the fierceness of like a Friday night. I feel like apart from Lean Back, this is probably like the closest thing in terms of like the most immediate, but this is not like a 1-2 punch. I'd probably say it's like a 1-2 three or a 1-2-4 punch. So I would probably find like a couple songs to kind of play after Lean Back. I would find a song and then maybe like another song, and then I'd probably play this song Humdrum after that as far as those pitches kind of happen. But it is mostly good. Goes with Lean Back relatively mostly nicely, I'd have to say, within those pitches. And it's like a basic percolate type song kind of get here. This kind of has a relative kind of darker, kind of soulful type tune about it as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just basically like some dedication or blueprint type soul within some of those type pitches, just in a more kind of club hop type fashion, I'd say. So it's a good, nice one. Once again, it's unfortunate that particularly Fat Joe isn't on this particular song, but at least mostly works within the fare behind it. The rest of the Terror Squad does pretty damn well within those pitches, so I have to say. And then Terror Air is a nice one here. This is one that feels like a Carter 2 leftover, despite the fact that it came out a year and a half before that particular album, I'd have to say. And it's like a typical kind of 2000s mixtape air and run type music, kind of get within some of those type pitches. Terror Air just feels like one that just feels a little bit more Miami Fridays for those pitches can have. It just feels like something that Rick Ross from Port of Miami, one of those runners type productions, or Lil Wayne from like the Carter 2, or Birdman from like his 2007 album Five Star Stunna, some of those type pitches just feels like something that like would have been like a Runners type. Yeah, I want to say this production might have been by Cool and Dre. Wasn't by Cool and Dre, but they do have some productions on here, so it does have like a relative kind of Miami flavor typeness to kind of get within some of these type pitches. But it just kind of feels like something that's like a standard Hustlers makeshift type song, kind of get within those fashions. Just a leftover from like Carter 2, definitely within those fares, or something Birdman or Fat Joe or Birdman or Rick Ross would have done just within that particular pitch. Good concept for that. So if you like Lil Wayne, this is a good album to kind of pick up here. And that's the thing about this particular album by Fat Joe, this Terror Squad album, is just the pitch behind it. That this feels like a cousin and a good sub venture to like Jay-Z's The Blueprint. It has a lot of similarities, just not as cosmetically pizzazzful within the pitch. Not to say it doesn't have the pizzazz, but just the aspect like the immediacy with Jay-Z having like multiple singles, and just the pitch of like the dynamite full blown kind of lyricism, just classic album within the pitch. But this is definitely an above average type of feel. It's that like I feel like when I say subventure, it's an easy kind of extraordinary kind of subventure to kind of go towards just within the pitch, of saying if you like The Blueprint, this is a good type fare to kind of invest in as far as those pitches kind of having, just without the superbly kind of bombastic overall just home run type of feel of it. But it is a good ass. It's a good look to be able to say it's definitely up that particular alley. It has supposed to. It's just within the pitch. So I would say me recommending at least 7 songs out of 12 on this particular album here. Me at least particularly recommending at least 7 out of 12 songs on here, plus the 3 almost songs. I'd say within the fashion, if it were 10 out of 12, it'd get like a 9.5 or 9.75 out of 10. But I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like an 8.25 out of 10, just within the fare behind it. I mean, it's kind of a tricky one to say, because really a 7 out of 12 is more of like a little bit more than half the album. That would be more of like a 6.75 or a 7.25, somewhere in there. But it's just the fact that as many blistering songs kind of hit within a mostly kind of good sense within that particular fashion, basically saying that there's only really 2 full-blown songs I don't recommend in any fashion, despite the fact that 3 of these are at least ones I'm kind of here and there about it. This is within the fashion that you just kind of have to, this is kind of a little bit more of like a wishbone kind of situation where you have to kind of finagle with it and just kind of cut the meat where you think it particularly kind of goes along with it. So it's just kind of the fashion. It's just within the aspect, no homo, just to say that, but just within the tone, just looking after the fare behind it, just being able to say. So I look after 8.25 score. Within the social score, I would probably give this album like a 7.5 out of 10, just within pitch. I feel like it does have some good moments on here, a lot of good mixtapes sold, some good Blueprint after moments. Like I said, definitely reminds me of like Jay-Z's The Blueprint, Lil Wayne's Dedication, some of those particular type fares, but it's just within the pitch that it's not blatantly obvious, but it is mostly obvious that the fact that Lean Back is the best moment in terms of like the social appeal, and it just really lacks something that has like the Friday kind of pizzazz, apart from maybe possibly like a little bit of Smoke Fair with Take Me Home, and a little bit of Humdrum, some of those type ones, which Humdrum doesn't have Fat Joe on there. So it's just within the pitch. It is kind of, it's a little bit clumsy or cumbersome with the concept of having some of these type moments for like a more kind of just weekend type of appeal. But it does have a lot of good soul on here, a lot of good commerce, just some more typical kind of city hop type dredges within the pitch, down with some Tuesday type music, evening dredges within the fair, some after work shifts, some of those type positions just within the aspect. A lot of chipmunk soul just within those particular type fairs. So it's just within the pitch, day life, nightlife, not as much full bound kind of star-studded nightlife, but enough aspects where this is kind of like a miniature kind of dedication or blueprints. That's just within the pitch. So 7.5 social. In terms of the future, unfortunate thing is that Terror Squad is not really around as much. Nowadays, Remy Ma has kind of gone solo. Most of the other Terror Squad members don't do as much. DJ Khaled is mildly on here on at least one song. Just on top of that, Fat Joe went into retirement, but he is working on a new album, so there's some pitches behind that. Fat Joe went into retirement, but he is working on a new album as far as those pitches kind of happen. So it's just with an aspect that we'll probably get some more good Fat Joes as far as those particular pairs can happen. So some good type stuff here. Once again, this album is a better look than it is, and just in the pitch has more kind of quality gems. But this is not really a weekend type smash, but it does have some good soul and overall makeshift drew on here that makes it makes it a pretty solid enough fun type project to kind of have for some outings.